Today we're making fish pie, a classic comfort dish, and we start with the mash. The purpose of the potatoes is to act as the topping on the fish pie. So the drier the mash, the better the browning, the better the pie. So we make our mash without water. We add a generous amount of butter. It looks like a lot of butter, but we're simply front-loading the butter, factoring in that they will be incorporated eventually anyway. To that we add our potatoes. Starchy potatoes, which is what you want for making mash, are 80% water. So for a kilo of potatoes here, we have 800 grams of natural liquid. And we're gonna use that to steam our potatoes, gelatinizing the starch, making them fluffy. And this way you get the best of both worlds. If you were to cook this in the oven, you would then have to incorporate more liquid to make it mashable. So, lid on, low heat, 45 minutes to an hour, during which we deal with the fish. We have the mild and flaky white fish, today, cod and haddock. We have our smoked haddock, which would add depth and a distinct savory note. Optional shellfish, today, prawns for some extra sweetness and texture. Optional salmon, which adds richness and a firmer texture. Now, if time permits, with the exception of the smoked fish, of course, I like to add a very generous layer of potato starch to really clean the surface of the fish. A technique used quite often in Japanese cooking. The starch would bind to the surface protein and any impurity. And when we do rinse, take away all the unwanted fishy smell and slimy texture. For me, this makes a significant difference when it comes to supermarket cod. So do give it a try if you have the time. You let this sit for a couple of minutes for the starch to do its magic. We then rinse until the water runs clear. And you can already see the difference on the surface. Perfect, now we can make our sauce. Melt some butter. In the olden days, you would poach your fish in your milk and then make the bechamel. But most modern recipes combine the two in one. So we make the bechamel and we'll cook our fish in the bechamel. Optional aromatic vegetable. In the winter, I like to add some leek. In the summer, maybe onion for some subtle sweetness. And I prefer adding them at this stage so we could sweat them, evaporate their water content to concentrate their flavors, as opposed to blanching them and just using them as a topping. But if this is your first, second, or third time making this, skip this step. Focus on the roux. Once you're comfortable making a roux, then you can play with the aromatic vegetables. Now, once there's not much steam coming out, meaning we've evaporated most of the water content, we start to slowly add our all-purpose flour and start building our roux. And as we add the flour, the butter starts to coat them and in turn coating each starch granule of the flour, preventing them from clumping together when we eventually introduce our liquid. And during this time, we also cook out the raw taste of the flour. Now, we add our milk, ideally from the fridge, because as you add the liquid, the starch starts to swell, gelatinizing in the process, and the cold temperature of the liquid helps to slow down that process, buying you more time and giving you more control. And we do this bit by bit. Today, for the purpose of demonstration, we're using milk for a more classic approach. But the thickness of the sauce comes from the flour, not the milk. So if you want a lighter dish, by all means, use water, use fish stock, make a dashi. If you want something even creamier, add a bit of double cream. Bit by bit. Perfect, and now we have a smooth texture. We give it about 5 minutes to cook out the roux. Now, we season the sauce. Salt, bearing in mind we haven't seasoned the fish. White pepper for some subtle heat. Optional Dijon mustard for some gentle tang. Now, optional, but if you are using milk or double cream, nutmeg. Double cream is best friend. This will bring a lot of warm spice and a subtle sweetness. Now, we wait for the mixture to cool down slightly, ideally to around 70 degrees Celsius, and we grate some optional mild cheddar. This would bring a lot of umami and sharpness to the dish. And the slightly lower temperature is to prevent the cheese from curdling, from splitting. And you make it as rich as you wish. You slowly integrate the grated cheese. Now we assemble the pie. At this point, ideally, you want your sauce to be between 50 to 60 degrees Celsius so that it's warm enough to coat the fish smoothly without overcooking the fish. Now we assemble. If you want the sauce to be really smooth, you can pass it through a sieve and thank the leek for its service. Perfect. Shake it just to get rid of the air pockets. And now this goes into the fridge to set while our potatoes finish cooking. After about an hour, our mash is ready. This method is a suggestion from one of the viewers in comments, and it's how I like to make mash ever since. So we simply break everything apart with a fork. As you can see, the milk solids of the butter combine beautifully with the starch and the cooking liquid, as if we added milk to the mixture. No resistance whatsoever. Beautiful. Of course, you have the option to pass it through a sieve if you want a much smoother texture. But for me, the rougher surface would give us more surface area for browning. So now, we let this cool down slightly. Now, once this is down to about 60 degrees Celsius, we incorporate 2 egg yolks, once again to help us with the browning. And had this be too hot, end up cooking the yolk before we could integrate them fully. Now let's make a pie. Our sauce is somewhat set, and this would make the handling of the mash easier. Now, I know it's very fashionable to have fish scales on top nowadays, but the overall objective of the exercise is you want to maximize the surface area you have, because then you can maximize the area you could brown in the oven. So whatever you like. Perfect. 200 degrees, about 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, we have something very beautiful. Look at that. Golden, almost crust-like top, generously bubbling, leaking edges. This is our fish pie.